morning, my friends. I'm Rick, and this is your seat at the table, and we're looking at things Battletech Back Force and so on and so forth. In this case, it's Battle Force. If you're not overly familiar with the wide range of options for Battletech, one of the early game systems that came out was a tabletop wargame system based on Lance and Company scale combat, and it's called Battle Force. And the original stuff, and I love that game. I do. I love that game. I probably played that game version of BattleTech far more than I played the tabletop version with minis. It just, I'm a strategy game player. I really love those kind of games. I play several. I play like Age of Empires on the internet. It's because it's free, and it kind of beats that, although it becomes at some point to become a grind and I get bored with it. So I like it when things are moving along and you're in constant strike mode. I also like to play. I got Civilizations 5. Civilization 5 is the same problem. At some point, it just becomes a grind fest, and you're playing against the computer, and the computer's not that savvy or original. I mean, it has a bunch of programming to do this and do that. If A does B equals C kind of thing, that's fine. But there's so much more challenge and pleasure of competing against another person, because the other person is going to do things or think of things or try to do things that you yourself might not do, or attempt strategies and tactics that are completely mad and they're either successful or utter failures. But it's all part of that. You're never 100% sure how this is going to play out. And anyway, so one of the early supplements for Battle Force is the Galtor Campaign, and they didn't make very many. See, I think Battle Force did not do nearly as successfully as Battle Mech and Mech Warrior did for many reasons. That's a niche combat game system. It's right up along the lines of things like these, and either you are into that or you're not into that. And so they didn't create very many of these campaign books. To my knowledge, this is the only campaign book that they made. If they did make others, I never noticed them, or I'm just not remembering them. But anyway, I like this because this is circa 3020, and Hanse Davion is in his first year or so of being the first Prince of the Federated Sons. He's in a role that he was not really trained for. He's dealing with a lot of internal politics and other issues. There's some references to some great novels that The Sword and the Dagger. If you ever get a chance to read The Sword and the Dagger, I highly recommend it. It gives you some insight into why Hanse Davion is so damn determined to take Maximilian Leo out of the picture and to eliminate the Capellan Confederation as a threat to his house and his family. I mean, you really have to read that book to understand it. It sets the tone for so much that follows in the lore. So the Galtor Campaign book is also another favorite of mine because it introduced a mercenary command called the Lone Wolves. And I didn't hear, outside of the campaign, the Galtor Campaign, I never heard of them until recently. Recently, I was reading, I've been reading Tamar Rising, and in Tamar Rising, the Lone Wolves actually resurface. So that I'm making a leap of faith or assumption that there's some novels that are tied together with the characters and personalities that are in Tamar Rising that I do not own and haven't read, and may or may not be able to afford to buy at some point. And within them there's been this resurgence of some very old lore, and the Lone Wolves were very I just like the name, which drew me to them very on as a very young man, and I favored them as my preferred mercenary command for many years, and it's basically a loose collection of fly-by-night mercenaries that come and go as campaigns are developed. So there's this small core group called the commission, I think, or something, and they hire on a case by case, sometimes day by day basis, uh, anybody with a mech or a tank and stuff, and under the guise of the lone wolves. Anyway, so they're established and begin in here. So in this case, they talk about the how Hanse Devon's plans didn't quite work out the way he was still trying to cut his teeth. He was a trained mech warrior commander and leader of men, but on a strategic level, it was some new things to him, and he bumbled a bit or so. So we got the early history, the outbreak of war, the fight for liberation. So you get a little bit more of the deep into the history of the Inner Sphere. It says, in 3013, Prince Davion of the Federated Sons was killed in successful recapture of Malay's world. His brother Hanse succeeded him and eventually sent weapons and agents to Galtor III. By 3022, Kurita forces were spread thinly across his frontier. A few reserves. Excuse the cough, I got a dry throat. Eager to seize the initiative, Prince Davion asked the rebel leaders for a revolt on Galtor III to coincide with his military advance. The Black and Whites agreed. While the Davion forces pushed toward Prospina, the Black and White forces attacked Kurita depots and bases all over Galtor. Luckily, Draconis combined forces billeted on Galtor III comprised barely a dozen battle mechs. Even so, the enemy fought a snarling, rippling, sordid battle and managed to keep many of their bases. The revolt on Galtor III enraged Takashi Kurita, who then diverted 2 crack regiments to crush the revolt. The combat mechs quickly shattered the Black and White's formations. After all, Viper bombs and infernos were no match for Vindicators and Battle Masters. News of the failed revolt on Galtor relieved the military high command in New Avalon. Kurita battle mechs in Galtor meant that there would be fewer units on the military district capital, Davion, the object of the next Davion attack. However, pangs of conscience tormented Hanse Davion. The Galtorians had supported House Davion's cause for 125 years and needed help, and he was resolved to liberate the planet as soon as possible. Redirecting the Davion assault was difficult and jeopardized the entire strategic situation. Ironically, however, the move succeeded beyond Davion's expectations. The crack Kurita and sort of light regiments that had moved from Galtor III towards the Davion military district border, leaving a single regiment on Galtor III. Federated Sons military forces overwhelmed the defenders, taking the planets Galtor and Marduk, destroying dozens of mechs and capturing dozens more. Remaining Kurita units limped back to Benjamin in the southern sector of the Uzon prefecture of the Benjamin military district. It was almost cut in half. Kurita military leaders reeled from the attack, scrambling to plug up the gap from their lines. The pastoral Reisling's planet suddenly became the front line. Overnight, the planet bristled with mechs, airstrips, fortifications, and support facilities. The total liberation for Galtor III was terrible. Cities razed, forests burned, and whole communities wiped away. Over 35% of the population died, and a quarter of the survivors were left homeless. In the aftermath, Hanse Davion appointed me as a planet administrator. We faced a laborious task to rebuild the planet, but my people accepted the burden with great dignity. To be free of tyranny was to be reborn. However, the horror and terror did not end for Galtor III. Some would say it was just the beginning. So the interim, Prince Davion devoted little time to study of his new conquest. Intelligence operatives reporting a disturbing House Liao military buildup on Liao-Davion border. Davion spent a great deal of time watching the developing situation around the planets Redfield and Atlas, but he continued to keep his eye on the Draconis Combine. 3024, Hanse Davion ordered a survey of all worlds captured in the last few years. Many contained rich finds of destroyed mechs and vehicles. In addition, some planets had hidden catches of priceless, irreplaceable parts and equipment dating back to the Star League. To everyone's surprise, the sophisticated computers on New Avalon indicated an unusually rich deposit on Galtor III. According to eyewitnesses, Davion read the preliminary survey reports skeptically. Computer reports were often wrong, could possibly left out left on a planet after occupied Kurita forces for over 100 years. His cynicism proved correct when the first survey mission found the remains of a Star League base stripped of all usable parts. However, the preliminary survey reports would create the perfect bait. No Kurita commander could possibly resist a pristine Star League base filled with mechs and equipment. Such a find would guarantee a successful commander a laurel wreath and a triumphant procession on Luthien. Delighted by the thought, Davion fed the records to known Kurita spies within his administration. Hence, he's a fox after all. Draconis March border 3025. The border was stable and quiet after the recapture of Galtor 3. The Draconis March militia took over the defense of the sector, spreading 6 of its 10 regiments across the long border of the Draconis Combine. The rest remained as a reserve to counter any Kurita thrust. The only single battle battalion and the regiment headquarters from the Dahar 4 Draconis March Militia Regiment defended Galtor 3. The rest of the regiment occupied the planet Marduk and a space station refueling stop. Few lances encamped on asteroids inside of Kurita space. Battalions of the Raman Draconis March Militia, a much weaker Green Force, defended an even larger stretch of frontier. Supporting these regiments was Bremen DMM, or Draconis March Militia, famous as the only regular Davion regiment with permanently signed jump ship. Proud people Galtor fielded their own army, the Galtor Regulars, remnants of the Black and White's resistance movement. The Regulars had only small amounts of outdated equipment and no training. Supplementing these weak infantry and armor units was a loose collection of mercenary battle mix called the Lone Wolves. Merely a group of individual lances, the Lone Wolves deployed renegades from mercenaries or house regiments, criminals, and green kids trying to build a reputation. They have a knack for smelling blood, appearing immediately before a fight, and offering their services to the natives. If the natives refuse to hire them, they work with the attackers. Although they lacking cohesion and direction, they fight with stubborn pride and a wild maniac abandon. To the Kurita Military District Commander on Benjamin, General Yoyori Yayashi, the Davion forces on its border were only a nuisance. Rising's planet contained Yoriyashi's 17th Benjamin Regulars Regiment and some specialized assault aerospace fighters. 3rd Benjamin Regulars Regiment occupied the fortified moons of the Tripoli system. The 3rd Regiment of the 6th Benjamin Regulars was just one jump away from Urizon, with 3 Draconis Combine regiments facing 2 Federated Sons regiments. General Yoriyashi worried about nothing. All right, so they get Operation Muppet. Davion quickly changed the unfavorable odds, doubling his plan. Operation Muppet began spinning the web trap Kurita with the highest priority and secrecy. 2 of Prince Davion's crack assault regiments arrived in the Galtor system. Damn dry throat. Excuse me. Let's see. 1 battalion of the elite Alpha Regiment of the 12th Vegan Rangers landed immediately, while the rest of the regiment remained off planet, ready to strike. Meanwhile, the 33rd Avalon Hussars set up on the Wagno Plain, where the second part of Davion's plan came together. To perfect his plan, Davion ordered a big camp created around an old Star League depot, designed by his best engineers. The camp developed one large trap. Heavily defended with mines, tripwires, automatic firing platforms, and a small core of fanatical defenders. 5 rusted-out dropship hulls ready for the scrap heap were planted around the camp, completing the illusion of a major salvage operation in progress. All throughout Operation Muppet, the troops of the Federated Sons observed strict rules to maintain the illusion of an undefended world. The ambushers maintained strict radio silence, supply shipments remained at low levels, and furloughs were granted to Dahar March Militia Battalion. Even the Galtor 3 population was unaware of the increased troop strength. Only the presence of lone wolves and their uncanny ability to be in the right place for a fight trade the carefully constructed veneer of peace. Simple, elegant, and well executed, the plan had all of the Hanse Davion trademarks. All that remained was to dangle the bait in front of the appropriate eyes. All right, so they lure in the Kuritans to attack this place, to take the spoils of this fictional Star League depot, and to bring their forces into a trap so they can be destroyed in detail. Things go wrong. Almost every military analyst believes the Hanse Davion's greatest strategic strength is the realization that a battle plan never works. Davion sees a plan as only a common base for changes. War in 30th and first century is too fluid to stick to a specific set of orders. At best, the plan lets everyone know from where they are coming and where they are going. The prince's perspective on war explains his reaction to the news that 2 of the 3 battalions of 33rd Avalon Hussars still languished in their barracks on Castrol just 1 week before the anticipated Kurita attack. Apparently, a lack of dropship parts prevented them from moving the entire regiment. Tragedy also weakened the Federation Sun's forces. A faulty sealant tube on the Union dropship Jasper caused a violent explosion upon liftoff from Marduk. 2 companies of the French's battalion of the Darhar DMM were destroyed, and the repair and landing facilities were severely damaged. Instigators suspected Kurita guerrillas of causing the blast. All this Prince Davion took calmly, arranging special transport for the Hussars and sending special medical aid to Marduk. And then the real trouble started. The survey team on Galtor Free found a real untouched Star League depot about 3,000 kilometers from the false site. The news stunned Prince Davion. Things like this happen in trashy novels, not in real life. Star League depot was a fact, and Davion had practically invited Kurita to take it away from him. This critical juncture, Hanse Davion slipped into a malaise that characterized his demeanor during the early days of the Galtor campaign. No one could get him to make a decision or exercise his authority. He became obsessed with the campaign on the Leo border and left the local commanders to fend for themselves. Many speculate that the demands from 2 major campaigns simply overtaxed the prince. Another theory was he actually suffered a medical disability that affected his judgment. Whatever the reason, Davion abruptly let go of the wheel, and Galtor campaign drifted into dangerous waters. It's about that time that this Galtor campaign is taking place on the Kurita front that the events of the Sword and the Dagger take place. I'm not going to say it's the exact same time because I'd have to go back and actually confirm that, but it's really close. We talk about there was this doppelganger effect this doppelganger plan where the Liao captures Hanse Davion and detains him and replaces him with a body double, and a lot of things are focused at that point on the Capella Confederation and this strange change in Hanse Davion's mindset. This was also about the same time that Hanse Davion and Katrina Steiner were in the initial stages of discussing the possibility of some kind of joint union between their 2 houses. Potential marriage, all that stuff that leads to the formation of the Federated Commonwealth and the Fourth Succession. So it's all kind of going on about the same time. And so it's not hard to believe that Hanse Davion suddenly is absent from this front. It's also a testament of the Federated Sun's command structure and supportive of individual-minded commanders that it doesn't fall apart. Had this been the reverse, had this been a Kurita operation, they would have been hamstrung, because without their leadership being on point, the rank and file won't function. They just don't do well. They're conditioned not to think outside the box, as opposed to the Davion military organization and their commander corps, very adaptive adapting to the change of the situation, very competent about thinking outside the box and dealing with what they need to deal with. So anyway, so we got Phase 1, 12th Vegan Rangers, 33rd Avalon Hussars, 22nd Special Air Squadron, Davion Guard Auxiliary, the Dahar Draconis March Militia, the Galtar Irregulars, including the Lone Wolves, House Kurita's opposing forces, in and nearby Galters, the 17th Benjamin Regulars, Special Air Squadron, 3rd Benjamin Regulars, 21st Galedian Regulars, Marushi's Independent Assault Battalion. So, Kurita Army has double its required number of dropships, except for fighter support. These ships were empty to carry the valuables from the Star League inventory. Obviously, if you're going to go and raid your neighbor, you need to have the cargo capacity to haul off your loot. So that's basically what we get down to. And we get down to the way the nuts and bolts of the campaign and the initial forays, counter forays, So we have Elijah's battalion of the 17 Benjamin Regulars led the attack. The lead company was equipped with advanced electronic probes, or AEP, specifically designed to spot mines. The AEPs effectively cut a path through the first band of minefields in less than 15 minutes. To counter the move, the Davion guard spotters called in artillery and airstrikes against these mechs. It goes on down the thing. And then we got other battles. General Mandela gave us life to save his regiment. Accompanied Sharon's battalion struck the 33rd Hussars base, blasting the artillery pieces and capturing large amounts of equipment and supplies. Air lances operating from the base flew 7,000 miles to New Delhi. Other battles raged all over the continent. The battle for the fake depot, where the 3rd Benjamin Regulars, now reunited with their commander, broke through the minefields and started attacking the dropships. The Davion Guard Auxiliary fought on courage alone, attacking mechs with just hand weapons and incendiaries. The last dozen or so men went underground into a maze of tunnels built to trap the Kurita mechs. Instead of blowing them up, the Brigadier General Degaudio collapsed the tunnels, killing the guards. Draconis Combine's 21st Galedian Regulars landed near New Delhi, except for 2 companies detailed to take Wuhan Pass from the other side of the continent. Effected minimal resistance. The Korea dropship techs did not fire probes or adequately scan the landing site. Certainly, 4 mech warriors did not expect to land smack in the middle of a mercenary encampment, especially the encampment of the benevolent lone wolves. The lone wolves cut many of the first assault mechs to pieces. Only one lone wolf mech warrior, author Big Booty Stetson, particularly delighted in the carnage. Big Booty operated a Hatcherman mech with his head painted like black and white like a skull. He roamed the battlefield, smashing cockpits of damaged Kurita mechs with his 2-ton axe while screaming about scalps. Other lone wolves acted no less bloodthirsty. Surprised and confused by the suddenly hot landing zone, the 21st quickly fell back. Warren's battalion limped away from the firefight with 60% casualties, surviving only because the wolves began fighting each other for salvage rights. However, Kurita mech warriors achieved complete surprise at the Wuhan Pass, blah, blah, blah. So, this just goes on and on in detail about the Galedian campaign. And there's a lot of work and a lot of effort that went into creating this. And I wish we'd seen more things like this. I mean, they do that. We have a number of source books. I've been also reading the 3039 source book for all the combat and and I've still got the second half of the Fourth Succession War sitting over here that I need to do here in the near future and get it reviewed. So these books here are great references, but they're also great fertile grounds for ideas and concepts for campaigns and operations and so on and so forth for your battlement campaigns. Just saying, right? So we get into here, and then we go in here, we go through the Vials. And these are also a section on just about all the books that put these out. I really enjoy them because it gives us a detailed information, a backstory for the particular organization or military unit. I mean, here's the Raman Draconis March Militia, their symbol, Commander Major General Bader Powell, Defense, blah, blah, blah. Along the Draconis frontier, many worlds cannot raise a full regiment for defense. Therefore, a light regiment like the Raman DMM spreads out among them. Each battalion is assigned to a different world and continuously linked by hyperpulse stations and a few jump ships. The purpose of such battalions is to protect the light industries and agriculture of the frontier from occasional pirate or rogue mercenary. They're not meant to fight pitched battles which proved disastrous for the Raman DMM on Galtor 3. The Raman DMM rarely trained together as a full regiment. The battalion's weak discipline are often cited in official inspection tours. Filled with green mech warriors are barely able to control their machines. The companies never fielded more than a lance at one time. The rest lay mothballed in repair facilities. To conserve supplies, General Baden Powell even forbid firing of live ammunition during maneuvers. Considering its handicap of men and material, units still perform remarkably well. And so what we have here is the stats for using Battle Force. Instead of using, the minis or the little paper jobs like this, you have a paper version of your unit force. And I really intend to do some videos on Battle Force. I just haven't got around to it. But it's all broken down in here. And we look at McNeil's battalion, for the Roman DMM. Its battalion headquarters, heavy veteran. Hadron's Light Company consists of 3 light lances, 1 regular, 2 green. Battle value 92. Briggs Recon Company is 3 light lances, 1 regular, 2 green. Jeremy's Light Company is 2 medium lances and 1 light, so 1 regular and 2 green. It just gives you, their stats. So we got the various units that participated in the Galtor campaign: 4th Tertius Lancers, 12th Bacon Regiment, Rangers Alpha Regiment, 22nd Special Air Squadron, 782nd Davion Guards Auxiliary. The standard auxiliary company contains as many units as Battle Mech Battalion. Instead of a lance, the basic unit of a Davion company is a platoon, each with 21 to 28 soldiers. The standard company will have 2 heavy platoons with extra firepower, electronic sensing devices, 3 platoons of troops riding lightly armored wheeled transports, and 1 platoon of jump infantry. The rest of the troops, everywhere from 4 to 6 platoons, are regular infantry. Occasionally, a battery of 3 sniper artillery pieces with its attendant armored scout cars are attached to the company. Galtor Regulars, the Lone Wolves, 17th Benjamin Regulars, 3rd Benjamin Regulars, 11th and 6th Benjamin Regulars, 21st Galadian Regulars, the 5th Galadian Regulars, 8th and 2nd Gallardon Regulars. I know I'm butchering it. The Amphigian Light Assault Group. Blah. So, yeah. Then we get the actual combat scenarios. Charge of the Hussars. Although woefully under strength, 33rd Avalon Hussars launched an attack against the regimental battle group and Guion's battalion of the 17th Benjamin Regulars. Davion attack might have succeeded if Elazar's battalion had not arrived in time to stop the Hussars' penetration. With Elazar pinned down, General Mandela could have destroyed the Gonos battalion and smashed the weak base camp, trapped Elazar's mechs against the minefields. A disaster of such proportions might have ended the entire Galtor campaign in the first battle. So you can refight the battle and maybe make it work, and maybe not. So, however it works for you. Anyway, I'm told, like I said, that there was only 1 printing of this. I don't know if it's available in PDF. I'd be surprised if it isn't. I mean, that would be kind of sad. This was produced and sold in 1987. This copyright 1987, Bassett Corporation. And I don't have a price tag on it, so I don't remember what I paid for it at that point. But hey, that's the Galtor campaign, and I hope you guys have a great weekend.